everyone, it's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgy, your guide to all things geeky, and welcome to another episode of Comic Class, the show every single Wednesday on this channel where we just geek out about comic books. And hey, wait a second, it's not Wednesday, this episode is late! Okay, so I know that a lot of you have clicked on this video because you saw that title and you're like, oh, I want to hear him talk about those books. Before I get into that, I have to explain what is going on here. But for anybody who just wants to jump ahead to me talking about those books, click on the time right there. But for everybody else, I gotta do some house cleaning. Okay, so last week on this show, I said that Marvel has been going through some rough times at the moment. They're getting some bad press between the Captain America reveal and Civil War II. Fans are not that happy with them at the moment. Although, in all honesty, both those books are selling like crazy at my store, so I don't really think that Marvel cares about that bad press. However, I've been seeing so many people online saying, oh, Marvel stinks now, oh, Marvel is terrible, down with Marvel. And hey man, I made a Civil War II video in which I came out and I was like, yeah, I'm not very happy about this. And also, for the rest of the summer, we're pretty much going to be talking about DC. At the end of every single month, I'm going to be talking about all the Rebirth books that came out, and I'm going to be doing a lot of praising of DC because of Rebirth. So I didn't want to just leave Marvel off with boo Marvel, and then spend the rest of the summer going, yay DC, because I've been reading comics for about 18 years. Yeah, I've been in this game for a long time. And believe me when I tell you, this is probably the best Marvel has ever been. At least in my comic book reading lifetime. Their books are fantastic at the moment. They have so many amazing books out there right now. So I didn't want to just leave off on a down note for Marvel before we go into DC. So I said that I was going to spend today's episode talking about all the amazing books that I love from Marvel. However, here's the thing, as I said, there are a lot of amazing books from Marvel. So I started recording that episode, and I got 2 hours into recording it, and I was only halfway through all the books I wanted to talk about. When I finished editing that episode, it was going to be about 3 hours long, and I don't care how much of a diehard fan you are, nobody wants to sit through a 3-hour-long episode of me just talking about comics. I don't want to sit through a 3-hour episode of me just talking about comics. My voice would be destroyed. So, here is what I've decided to do. You guys out there have asked me to talk about just random books here and there, but every single week I have something big that needs to be talked about. So, this is the compromise. From here on out, we are going to have Comic Class Minisodes. Every single week, you're still going to get your regular Comic Class episode, but you are also going to get a mini episode, which is not going to be any more than 5 minutes long. I know that I am the king of going way longer in episodes than I intend to go, but I promise you I'm going to stick to that. They're going to be small, tiny episodes in which I just talk about one book every single week. So yes, the first couple of weeks we're going to be talking mostly about Marvel books. However, after I've gotten a good chunk of those Marvel books out of my system, we're going to move on to the other companies. I'm going to talk about DC, I'm going to talk about Image, I'm going to talk about Valiant, I'm going to talk about some of the minor indie companies out there. So, if you want to see any of those episodes, or if you have some books that you'd like to recommend I talk about, leave that in the comments down below, and make sure to hit that subscribe button. But, for now, because this is the very first episode, and because I didn't have a regular comic class this week, instead of talking about one book, we're going to be talking about 2. These are 2 of my favorite books that Marvel is putting out there right now. Okay, first book, Power Man and Iron Fist. Okay, now, Power Man and Iron Fist were 2 characters that originally teamed up back in the 70s, and they created the Heroes for Hire, and in many ways they kind of defined the 70s. Like, if you think about a lot of the things that were famous from the 70s, like the music and the movies, Power Man and Iron Fist really captured that spirit back then. And also, New York was a very gritty and grimy and ugly place back then, and having these 2 street-level guys going out there and fighting crime back in those days, that was something that really captured New York, at least captured it as well as you could in a mainstream comic book. And because of that, I've heard many people out there say that it's kind of impossible to capture that spirit again. You can't bring back that same spirit because times have changed. New York is not in any way, shape, or form the same New York that it was back in those days. Our entertainment and what's popular is not the same as it was back then. So the flavor of the old Power Man and Iron Fist, you can never get that again. David Walker and Sanford Greene are a dream team because those guys are working together so well that they actually have done that. they have recaptured that same spirit of the old Power Man and Iron Fist book, but at the same time, it's not just a repeat of that book. It is updated, it is modernized, and both Iron Fist and Power Man have changed dramatically. This is what I love. Back in the 70s, Power Man, you know, he was kind of the young guy, he was a little bit more the irresponsible one, he had a little bit of an anger problem back in those days. And Iron Fist, you know, he was more stoic, more peaceful, more mature. These days, what I love about this book so much, it's that Power Man, Luke Cage, he has a family now. He has a wife, he has a kid. He's grown, he's mature, he's led the Avengers within that time. And now, he is the mature one. He is the adult of the group. He's the one that's like, yeah man, I don't want to team up anymore. I don't want to be the heroes for hire anymore. I've moved on to bigger stuff. But at the same time, Danny Rand, Iron Fist, he's the buddy from college who still wants to have those old college days back again. He is that guy who, like, he just hasn't quite matured enough, and even if he was the mature one back in those days, he's now the one who's like, yeah man, come on, let's go out drinking tonight. And he's like, no man, it's a school night, I gotta make sure I'm home for my kids. Like, oh come on man, we haven't done this in forever. You can tell I know people like this. In fact, I will admit, both Power Man and Iron Fist in this book, I have been both of those guys at different points in my lives. So I can relate to this book in many ways. Now what this book is about is that Luke Cage and Danny Rand have to pair up one last time to go and pick up their old secretary from prison. She's being released on this day. You see, what happened is that back in the original Heroes for Hire comic, she was in an abusive relationship with her boyfriend. And she ended up getting possessed, and while she was possessed, she ended up killing her abusive boyfriend. And she went to jail for that, because despite the fact that she was possessed, it's kind of hard to prove that in court. So she went to jail, and they have now come to pick her up as it's her time to be released. And after they pick her up, she goes, listen, can you just do one thing for me? Just one thing. While I was in jail, Tombstone, who is this mob boss in Marvel Comics, he took my grandmother's necklace. Can you just go and get that necklace back for me? And Danny is like, oh my god, dude, it's a job. It's a job. You and me teaming up together, Heroes for Hire, things are happening here. And Power Man is just like, listen man, this is just me and you as friends, because we're friends, buddy. Me and you, okay? We're friends. This is just us as friends going to do a request for another friend. It's not Power Man and Iron Fist back together on a job. I got a life now. I got stuff outside of this. And they go, they meet up with Tombstone, and that leads to one thing, and that leads to another thing, and it just keeps leading to this crazy series of events until eventually it's like, yeah, we're back together again. Heroes for Hire forever. All right, it's happening. And it is just great chemistry between these two. Because like I said, I love that balance between Luke Cage being like, no, I'm responsible, I'm a dad now. Like, Luke Cage used to have kind of a foul mouth on him back in the day. And in this book, he keeps saying fluffernutter every single time that he wants to actually curse. And Danny's like, why do you keep saying that? And then there's like a cut to a flashback of Luke on the couch with his wife, and their baby is sitting on the floor just cursing up a storm. And then his wife goes, Luke, I love you, but you have to get this cursing under control. So now every time he wants to curse, he just makes up some like kid-friendly term. It's such a small thing, but it is an amazing touch to his character. Like, it says a lot and it's very funny. This is great writing of his character. I think I said fluffernutter. It's actually fiddle faddle. That's the fake curse word they use. Big difference there. But, as I said, the best thing about this book is the chemistry between these two guys. However, as I said, one of the things that made the old Power Man and Iron Fist is that it really captured that voice of that era, and also really captured the voice of the street of New York City. And the same is true today, except it's all updated. They did a great job of really capturing what New York City is like today. Like, for instance, the overwhelming presence of social media and the internet. Like, there is something going on with the art, and I don't know if Sanford Green, the artist, or David Walker, the writer, is the one who came up with this idea, but there's constantly just people taking photos throughout this, and it's not just like a small touch. It actually plays into the plot. Like, there's an amazing sequence in which they're just walking down the street talking to each other, and there's a guy just standing there with his camera like 2 inches from them. So it does try and put out there the idea that social media is a big thing right now, and that actually does come into the plot, because there's a moment in which they're like, we're not getting back together, we're not doing a big case. All right, this is just a small thing, just a one-time thing, let's not talk about. And then they get attacked by some supervillains being sent over by Tombstone, and then all of a sudden everybody whips out their phones and starts recording it, and then the entire world just goes, oh, Power Man and Iron Fist are back together. And also in the old series, a lot of the criminals were like street level criminals, like a lot of small time mob bosses. And I absolutely love the way that it depicts that world of the small time mob bosses in here, because like in issue 2, after it's being rumored that they're getting back together, there is an amazing sequence in which it just shows the grapevine, like the word of mouth going from one small time criminal to another. It shows a bunch of them just at different locations just going, did you hear the Power Man and Iron Fist are back together? Oh god, I hate those guys. And it just goes from one person to the next to the next to the next and just shows how it spreads. It really does capture this feeling like the entire city is connected. And that's what you want from a book like Power Man and Iron Fist. And as I said earlier, this book is hilarious. I got also put that out there. The interactions between Danny and Power Man are amazing. They are so funny, but at the same time, there's so much heart in it. Like Jessica getting mad at her husband because he ended up ruining his shirt because he was attacked by a giant gorilla man. Just small things like that, or Danny just being obsessed with the fact that it's like, hey look, why doesn't your wife like me? And he's like, she does like you, man. Stop being so paranoid about this. Just very realistic stuff like that. Very realistic stuff like if your friend gets married, you're very obsessed with the idea that his wife likes you. Like it just captures the voices of so many different things with both of these characters. So yeah, that's the first book, Power Man Iron Fist. It's great, highly recommended. Moving on to the second book I want to talk about, Moon Knight. Alright, Moon Knight is being written by Jeff Lemire, and Jeff Lemire has started writing a lot of stuff at Marvel, and I remember when he got signed on to Marvel, I was like, oh my god, this is great. Jeff Lemire is a very talented writer. I cannot wait to see what he does, and I'll be totally honest with you, I like his all-new Hawkeye. I feel like it took a little while for it to find its own voice. I feel like in the first couple of issues, it was still trying to be Matt Fraction's Hawkeye, so it took a little while for it to become its own thing, but now it's become its own thing. I do like it. But again, it's not like amazing, and his Extraordinary X-Men, it's been a little bit, I don't want to say disappointment, but yeah, it hasn't been as good as I was hoping it would be. And his Old Man Logan is very, very good, but it's not great. It's very, very good, so close to great. I still wouldn't call it great, and Jeff Lemire is a great writer. So I've been waiting for that book at Marvel for Jeff Lemire to finally go, this is what I came over here to do. Moon Knight is that book. Okay, really quick recap of who Moon Knight is. Moon Knight was this mercenary. He was over in Egypt. He got shot down right in front of this statue of Khonshu, the moon god, or whatever he is. The passenger of those traveling at night, I believe is his actual title. But he died, and then all of a sudden the moon god resurrects him and says, you are going to be my warrior here on Earth. But as his story went along, it kind of became clear, it's like, oh, I don't know if there actually is a moon god or not, or if you're just crazy. Because every single writer came in here and kind of tinkered with him a little bit more to play into the fact that Mark Spector, Moon Knight, is schizophrenic. He has split personalities, he has visions, he hears voices, and some of those might be a moon god. Some of them are just him being crazy. And this book starts off with Mark Spector in a mental institution. And it's not one of those modern day mental institutions. It's an old school mental institution, one of the ones that they shut down because the treatment of their patients was so terrible. Like back in the old days, mental institutions, you could die if you went to one of those. Like electroshock therapy used to be something that they would just give you like that. It was something that they were like, ah, we don't care if it fries your brain. Yeah, it's probably good for you. He goes to one of these places. And like every single day, like the nurses are just beating the crap out of him. They are putting him in electroshock at least once a day. Like he is on the verge of death in this place. And they are telling him, yeah, Moon Knight doesn't exist. We don't know what you're talking about. You've been here ever since you were a child and you left the orphanage. We don't know what any of this stuff is that you're talking about. And Moon Knight throughout his entire life, yeah, he has had mental problems. So it does an actual good job of making even you, the reader, question, oh shoot, could this all be real? Could all those other Moon Knight books that I've read all this time just been fake? I mean, I know that would be a total dick move of Marvel to pull, but you know, these are the guys who did One More Day. I would not be shocked if they suddenly came in and said, yeah, you remember all those adventures in the Avengers where they teamed up with Moon Knight? They were teaming up with nobody. However, every single night, or whenever he gets electroshock therapy, he has visions of Khonshu. And Khonshu is telling him, listen, I'm real. All the stuff that you believe, it's real. But I'm not the only Egyptian god out there. They realize that you're a threat. They want to take over New York City. This is all a trap. None of this is real. The hospital is fake. You are being trapped there. And everybody from Moon Knight's history is also there at the hospital. And in the past, most recent Moon Knight series, they've kind of gone, yeah, he's broken off ties with every single character he's ever known. So as somebody who has read numerous Moon Knight books, even before the War in Hell stuff, it was really great to see some of these characters actually coming back. However, I have to admit, I don't even know if they're real. Like, that's how good of a job this book does of making you go, is that person actually there? What's going on? Are they actually in the subway tunnel right now, or are they in some Egyptian temple? It is great of getting weird and trippy, while at the same time actually having a cohesive story. Like, it's one of those few times in which you can make a book really weird, trippy, out there, feel like a dream, and yet there's still a straight line story that you can follow. But so every single night, Mark is getting a little bit of his sanity back. He's getting a little bit more of his memories as Moon Knight back. He's talking to Khonshu more, and the other people in this hospital, they're starting to get a little bit of their mind back too, and so they start playing this escape. But as they plan their escape, they realize these other Egyptian gods, their reach is far. They have been doing tons of stuff while Mark has been trapped here, and you see all of New York City and what these Egyptian gods have done in New York City. And once again, this book does an amazing job of making you go, is that actually happening? Did this actually happen? What happened to all the people in New York? Why does it look like this now? Again, I don't really want to spoil anything for you, but New York is messed up. But at the same time, it makes you go, or maybe it's not. Maybe this really is all in Mark's head. Like, at the end of this first storyline, it could totally be revealed that none of this actually happened. That this was just Mark's descent into madness. That all those friends from his past are not actually there. They're just visions of him, just old voices from his memories coming back to try and support him. And honestly, if they did that, I'd be cool with it, because it would still be an amazing character study. It would still be a great journey through this character's psyche, and Moon Knight is one of the weirdest characters out there, so if you're going to have a journey through anybody's psyche, it should be Moon Knight, and Jeff Lemire is killing it at that. Okay, that's it for the first Comic Class mini episode, although today it wasn't really a mini episode, but next week we're going to have another mini episode in which we're talking about another Marvel book, and just to tease you guys a little bit, the book we're talking about next week is considered by many people, including myself, to be not just the best Marvel book out there, but the best book out there right now. Yeah, that should get you to tune in next week. So if you want to see that episode, make sure that you click that subscribe button. And if you want to see more from me right now, then make sure that you click on those videos at the end of this episode. Also, if you have any books that you would like to recommend that I check out, then make sure that you leave them in the comments down below, or contact me at Twitter and Tumblr at Professor Thorgy. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this new episode. Come back next time.